Okay, let's dive into this. Every single time you load a website, you're seeing the result of all these invisible decisions that engineers had to make. These decisions are what determine if a site is lightning fast, if it's reliable, or heck, if it's even online at all. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most critical choices any massive platform, like Wix, has to make.
It's a really good question, right? When one little piece of a huge website has a problem, why doesn't the entire thing just collapse? Well, the answer isn't magic. It's actually a very deliberate, very fundamental choice about how data is organized behind the scenes.
You see, for a platform that's managing literally millions of websites, this is not just some small technical detail. It's a high-stakes bet on what matters more, having your data perfectly organized or having unstoppable uptime. It's this constant battle between performance and resilience.
All right, so let's explore the first path. We can think of this one as the perfectionist approach. This philosophy is all about keeping your data incredibly tidy, perfectly organized, and with absolutely zero duplication. In the tech world, this is known as the normalized approach.
The core idea of normalization is actually pretty simple when you break it down. Every single piece of information has one and only one place to live. That's it. Data gets broken down into these small, distinct tables, and they're all linked together with references, kind of like a perfectly organized cross-referenced filing system.
Probably the best way to think about this is like a classic library. The author's information is in one card catalog, the book titles are in another. It's perfect. There's zero duplication. But, and this is a big but, if you want the full story on a book, who wrote it, when it was published, where it is, you have to run around and check all these different places. That takes time, it takes effort, and for you, the user, that can mean a slower loading page. Now let's look at the other side of the coin. We'll call this one the pragmatist, or maybe even the speed freak. This philosophy cares a whole lot less about perfect tidiness and a whole lot more about getting you the information you need, like right now. This is the denormalized approach. So denormalization basically says, forget running all over the place. It strategically copies the most important info you need and puts it directly where it's going to be used. You're essentially pre-packaging the data for one reason and one reason only: pure, unadulterated speed.
And this brings us to the scrapbook analogy. Instead of that neat library, imagine you've got a scrapbook where everything related is just pasted onto a single page. The author's photo, the review, the publication info, it's all right there. It's incredibly fast to look at, but you just have to accept that, yeah, the same photo might be copied and pasted on 10 different pages.
So there we have it, our two competing philosophies: the tidy, consistent perfectionist versus the fast, resilient pragmatist. Let's see how they really stack up when we put them head-to-head and look at the trade-offs. This table really lays it all out. With a library, reading data is slower. You're making all those extra calls, but you get what's called strong consistency. Everything is perfectly in sync all the time. Now the scrapbook, it is blazing fast because it's just one read, and it's incredibly resilient because each service has its own copy of the data it needs to function. The trade-off? Well, it takes a moment for updates to ripple across all those copies, which leads to something called eventual consistency. It'll get there, just not instantly. So every major web platform has to make this choice. They have to place their bet. Given all those trade-offs, which path do you think a massive platform like Wix takes to make sure millions of websites stay online no matter what?
Resilience. That's the one. At the scale Wix operates, this is priority number one. Resilience means that if one service has a problem, let's say the system that manages contact lists goes down, it doesn't cause a catastrophic chain reaction that takes everything else down with it. Each service has to be able to stand on its own 2 feet.
And that priority leads directly to this core principle: denormalize by default. This is Wix rule of thumb. It means that for their most important, high-traffic, public-facing services, they choose the scrapbook. They prioritize independence and speed way above perfect, centralized data purity. So when is this the clear winning strategy? Well, it's a no-brainer when you need to give users those incredibly fast load times. It's also perfect when the data you're copying doesn't change all that often, and critically, it's the go-to for pretty much any service that deals with high-scale public traffic. You just can't have users sitting around waiting while your system checks 10 different places for information.
But, and this is important, default does not mean always. The perfectionist librarian still has a job. If a piece of data is updated constantly, or if you absolutely, positively cannot tolerate even a millisecond of data being out of sync, think about financial transactions, then the tidy, normalized library is still the right call. Okay, so this leads to the biggest question of all, right?
If you're running this massive scrapbook with data copied all over the place, how on earth do you keep it all up to date when something changes? I mean, how do you avoid total chaos?
The answer is a really elegant engineering pattern called materialization. It's a fancy word, I know, but it's for a simple idea. You don't copy everything. You just copy a specific, useful subset of data, what they call a view, and you store that little view inside the other services that need it.
Wix actually built a whole automated system just to handle this. So when a piece of data changes, like a contact's name gets updated, the original service just sends out a little signal, an event. A central system they call the materializer hears that signal and then automatically goes around updating all the different scrapbook pages where that contact's name was copied. It's like automated synchronization. Super clever.
And the outcome here is pretty powerful. Services stay independent and resilient, which means more uptime for everybody. The user experience stays incredibly fast because the data is right there, ready to go. And all of it stays in sync without developers having to write mountains of complex manual code.
So the crucial point here is this. Building a resilient web isn't about finding one single perfect rule to follow. It's about really understanding the trade-offs between a perfectly tidy system and a pragmatically fast one, and then building clever tools to manage the complexity you decide to take on.
And that is the hidden architecture. So the next time you use an app and it just feels instantly responsive, ridiculously fast, take a second and just wonder what's going on behind the curtain. Are you witnessing the work of a neat and tidy librarian, or are you benefiting from a very, very clever scrapbook? It's a choice that really does shape our entire digital world.